Hey girlfriends, welcome to DIYG, and today we're going to walk you through how to install laminate flooring. Before you get started, you'll want to open the laminate packaging and lay the planks in the room where they will be installed for at least 48 hours. This will let them acclimate to the temperature of the room and prevent warping. The first step is to prepare the subfloor. The base floor needs to be clean and smooth, and we are installing the flooring over low-pile carpet that was glued to concrete, so we're going to thoroughly vacuum the carpet. If possible, it is better to remove the carpet and lay the flooring directly on the subfloor. The goal is to make sure that the subfloor is flat, so if you have a concrete floor, fix any chips or dips in the floor. If you have a wood subfloor, remove any nails and sand down humps and patch any cracks. If you are installing the flooring in a room with high moisture, you will need to lay down a vapor barrier. You will also need to install an underlay if placing laminate flooring on wood or concrete. Next, we'll move on to measuring the room. To start, you'll need to measure the width of the room, and that will be the longer side of the room. And then to determine how many rows of planks you'll need, divide the width of the room by the width of one of the planks. Make sure you allow a gap for the flooring to expand, so you'll need to subtract 3/4 of an inch away from the width. You'll also need to decide what offset pattern you prefer by laying out the planks staggered on the floor. In a basic room, it's ideal to place the planks parallel along the longest wall in the room. It's best to do at least 3 or 4 offsets like we're doing here for a more staggered look, and then repeat that pattern throughout the rest of the room. Keep in mind that a typical room will not divide perfectly, so you will need to make some adjustments for the last row of planks. To figure out the width of the last row, take the width of all the other rows and subtract that measurement from the total room measurement. So now that we have our measurements, let's get started on laying the first row of planks. Start the first row of flooring by laying a plank with the tongue side facing out away from the wall. You'll need to leave an 1/8 inch gap between the planks and the wall to allow for the expansion of the planks. So to do this, you can use 1/8 inch spacers along the wall, and you'll want to use at least 2 or 3 for each plank. When installing the second plank, you'll want to line up the tongue with the groove on the first plank and then make sure that it snaps into place. Once you get to the point where you can no longer fit another full-length plank, you will need to measure the area that is missing. And when you're making these measurements, don't forget to allow for the 1/8 inch expansion gap. Once you find your measurement, you'll need to replicate that measurement on your plank, and then it's time to head to the saw. We are using a miter saw to cut our planks, and when you cut your planks, you'll want to cut with the finished side facing up. After that, you can slide your missing piece into place, and don't forget to add your spacers. Make sure that there are no gaps in between our planks. We are using this tool called a tapping block, and you just slide it into your plank and use a rubber mallet to lightly tap it so that the planks are even without any gaps. Moving on to the second row, this is where you're going to start creating your offset look with your planks. And you'll do this by starting your second row with either a shorter or a longer piece than you started with on the first row. Once you find your measurements for your missing pieces, you will replicate those measurements on your extra planks. And just like we did for the first row, use a saw to cut your planks down to size. Most rooms will have a door somewhere, and when you get to that point, you can either use a saw to cut the door frame so that the plank can slide under, or you can just cut the planks so that it will fit around the door frame. We are going to cut our plank instead of the door frame, and to do this, you will need to find the measurement of the door frame where it will hit on the plank. To do this, we are using a contour gauge tool and replicating that measurement on the plank. Once you have your measurement on the plank, you can use a jigsaw to cut that section out. If you're using a handheld saw, make sure that your other hand is out of the way because nobody wants to lose a finger. Once you've cut your plank, then you can install it like normal, making sure to use your tapping block and your spacers. Now that you know what to do, continue installing your planks until the room is complete. Once you have finished installing all of your planks and your room is complete, then you can remove the spacers, and for a more finished look, you'll want to install matching threshold, baseboard, and molding to the walls using finishing nails. And then you can apply caulk to the edges of the wall and enjoy your new floors.